So the one local Sikh temple actually raised a concern on behalf of the community regarding the limit and how it's affecting the mental health of those who are unable to grieve the passing of the loved ones due to COVID restrictions. They can't visit to the hospital. They can't even attend whole family as a funeral, even not able to attend as a family the last prayers of the loved ones, which is very important for the Sikh culture. And they are asking for the increase the number of people to attend these funerals, especially the temple prayers, because the temple has a huge space. They can maintain the protocols as well.
No, and I hear that, and I do feel that deeply for many families around the province. It is the most challenging time, and funerals are those times of both grief and celebration of lives that is very challenging for us to keep small and to postpone. And I know for many different faith communities, there are different important rituals that are around death that need to be done. But I also know that there are ways that we can support people to do it safely through this most extraordinary of times, the global pandemic that we are all in. And we have seen heroic examples of that from different faith communities across this province, whether it's Sikh or Hindu or Muslim or Catholic or Indigenous ceremony. We need to find ways to do ceremonies that are so important to us as a community safely for a little bit longer. We will be there again, and we will need to find ways to make up for the loss of those important ceremonies in our lives for the last year.
I think many of my friends in the South Asian community, whether they're Sikh or Hindu or Muslim or other religions or Christian or other religions, have found this to be a particularly difficult time, as all people have in BC. A very dear friend of mine lost his father 2 weeks ago and held a memorial with 9 people in attendance, consistent with the rules, and spoke very movingly both about the power of that and the importance of that moment, but also the sense of loss at an event which undoubtedly hundreds of people would have otherwise attended, including myself. So people have been dealing with this throughout the pandemic, and we have to make a note of it, not just those who have passed away related to an infection of COVID-19, but everyone who's lost loved ones who hasn't been able to fully grieve or fully recognize that loss. And so that's something that all of us are going to have to think about doing at some point in the future when restrictions are reduced, find ways to come together to recognize, to celebrate the lives of the people that we've loved who have passed away. So we appreciate that. But I would say this as well. There are 568 cases today. The significant, even I believe the majority of those cases, overwhelming majority of those cases at this time, it was different in January, but at this time, are in Metro Vancouver. Significant numbers of cases. About half of them, or a little more than half of them, in Fraser Health. But we have to continue to follow the measures and the guidance right now. And it's particularly important on gatherings. There are enormous numbers of important gatherings that people are not able to go ahead with right now, including sporting events, including religious ceremonies that are so important, such as weddings and funerals, not able to go ahead with in the same way that we would otherwise. Other events in communities, arts events. People often write me about the movie industry or about movies, about cinema and being able to go to a movie. And of course, many events that bring people together in our own homes. But we have to stick together to stop the spread right now. We simply have to do it. And that means that these sacrifices, which have been enormous, in which all of us, every single one of us, have felt personally in the last year, because I doubt there's a person in BC who hasn't lost someone close to them in some way in the past year, hasn't known someone, a family member or a friend or others that you're connected with, or a workmate or whoever, who have not been lost in the past year. So we know that this has been a loss that's been felt by everyone. We have to ask people in every community, especially and people of faith and people such as you mentioned of the Sikh faith are one of those groups. We have to be with one another right now in solidarity, remain apart as much as possible right now and consistent with the rules and the guidance of public health. It is so important right now as we start to vaccinate people, 5% at this time, 1 in 20 of those eligible to be vaccinated, and making progress every day as we do this to stop the spread and make sure that we save lives and save suffering, to save people from suffering across BC.
Prabjot, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, please. The latest poll suggests 60% Canadians suffering the mental health issue due to COVID. Or some experts suggest we might see the mental health tsunami after this pandemic. So is there any take on that?
Yeah, and that is something that we've been watching very carefully as well. And we know from literature on other crises that a lot of it depends on the support that we get as a community. Resilience is really a community effect, more so even than an individual effect. Our ability to have our individual resilience is also dependent on our community. So that is a really important thing to remember that we know from previous crises. We also know that there is a sense of anxiety that comes with the uncertainty that we're living through, and that all of us are feeling it to some degree or the other. Some people are float above it, if you will, but many of us are feeling it intensely, and I'm particularly concerned about young people. Young people in their teenage and early 20s, because they have had the least ability to affect things, and their lives have been the most changed, and they feed or they have the anxieties that all of us as adults are feeling and projecting into the world as well. So we need to pay attention to young people. We need to support them. We need to look to providing additional supports for the future for young people, because if you're one of the young people in my life who graduated from high school last year and didn't have a celebration, who had very limited job prospects because of what we were going through. University is a remote thing that you don't even get to connect during a period of time where social connection is so much a necessity in one's life. It's how you find your way in the world. So this is something that, as you can tell, I'm quite passionate about. We need to support mental health for all of us right now, but we need to look to the future for how do we build those things in place that allow particularly our young people to recover from this most traumatic year in that way. And we have been doing quite a lot of work on the societal impacts of this pandemic and the societal consequences, not just of the virus, but of the measures we've put in place to deal with the virus. And we've been monitoring mental health issues as well. So we know that early on there was a lot of concern about mental health. We've had increased people phoning helplines, especially young people. We know that there's increased interpartner violence and violence against women that have been triggered through this process as well. But we also know that there are things that we can do that help diminish that, and that most people will recover in time if we have the right things in place. So this mental anxiety, depression, concern that we're going through now, we can recover from that, and most people will, if we're able to continue our sense of community and find those right supports for people. So yes, I'm very concerned, and we are looking at the impacts and what are the specific measures that we need to have to support every one of us in the next month to a year, because it's going to be a long time for this to play out as well.